There are two aspects to the way the Buddha teaches meditation. One is called Samatha, which translates to calmness, calm, tranquility. You could also call it samādhi. Samādhi is typically translated as concentration in English. But if you say concentration in English, it has many misleading connotations, because concentration in English usually is not a very relaxed state. It's often a state of an intense effort, whereas samādhi is very concentrated, but in an effortless and super relaxed way. This was the aspect I gave most emphasis in this guided meditation. I emphasized the samatha samadhi, calmness aspect. And you could also say a unification of mind. And the idea is that the mind gets so absorbed, so engaged with a suitable meditation object, and in particular the mind gets so happy by focusing on a suitable meditation object, like the breath, or loving kindness, or the Buddha, that the mind develops what is called rapture, piti, and sukha, bliss. And if that meditation really advances the mind, the heart becomes so happy, so blissful, that the mind, so to speak, forgets about everything external and completely unifies, absorbs internally on that rapture and bliss and happiness connected with the meditation object. That tends not to happen so easily. It's quite an advanced state. But even if we get only a part of that joy and rapture and bliss, it's already very uplifting. So I'm glad you mentioned that you could feel some relaxation. That is the samatha aspect. The other aspect is what is called Vipassana, insight. You could also call it wisdom, panya. That is investigating, trying to understand, trying to comprehend, using wisdom to see reality as it truly is. This is an even more important one. The rapture and bliss and happiness from samādhi is already lots of good karma, and is a very blissful abiding. Is basically better than any kind of sensual happiness one can possibly achieve. The people who experience that say it is better than any form of sensual happiness. But it is an impermanent state. It is still sankhara, it is still constructed. It will not last forever. When someone develops samādhi diligently, they also get reborn in a corresponding rebirth, where their experience can be a state of unified rapture and bliss for what would amount to millions of years in human reckoning. It's a very mystic state. And then they can experience this for a whole rebirth, and for even a whole eon. But even then it is impermanent. The task of wisdom and understanding is to investigate reality so that the heart can completely let go of all conditioned phenomena, like the body, like our feelings and emotions and thoughts, our awareness, even consciousness, in all six senses, and letting go of all of that. For that we have to recognize the impermanent nature of all conditioned phenomena. Both these aspects now are connected. When the mind is very calm, relaxed, unified, also very bright and radiant, very mindful. This is not a relaxation like going to sleep and losing awareness, but samādhi is a state of being completely calm and at the same time to be extremely aware. You're more awake than normal. It's also important to understand that samādhi is not a trance. The trance state is if we go below normal waking consciousness, but not quite asleep. In a sense, we always go through the trance state when we fall asleep. And so it's a little bit like dreaming, a bit more alert than dreaming, but not really awake. This is not what samādhi is going for. Samādhi means you're actually more awake than normally. You're more alert, more mindful. The mind is sharper and more clear, really crisp, bright, radiant. Mindfulness is sharp. If you notice, you become very calm and relaxed, but you become hazy or you start nodding, then it's not going in the right direction. It's not easy to get them both, because normally in normal life, when we become very calm and relaxed, we go to sleep. And usually when we're very alert, very awake, we're super active. What samadhi means, both, incredible, calm, tranquil, still, at the same time, alert, bright, mindful, awake. And that obviously can support the practice of wisdom and insight. When the mind is calm, relaxed, bright, radiant, it is easier to see things as they truly are. And what do we look at in terms of the way things truly are? Basically our experience, our body and mind. We can start with the body, and we find that this body is impermanent. You stay quite young. If you're old like me, if I look at photos, for example, when I arrived here at Dhammagiri, I was a strapping, handsome young man. Now I'm an old grandfather. It goes very quickly, in 19 years. And you realize that you look into the mirror. But even when you're young, you can look at photos when you're still younger. You can see other bodies aging, the parents, grandparents. And we know ultimately there's something happening in this body that inevitably leads to death, ultimately. Aging, some processes there, the whole thing that ages until finally it falls apart. But it's the same with our thoughts. We are so involved, and the thoughts are so important to us. But if we look at them, they can never stay. A thought comes and it goes. It's the same with emotions. Sometimes we feel so happy, we are really over the moon, and then it changes, and then we feel maybe a bit depressed or frustrated. Then we get excited, then we get a bit anxious or fearful. Then we may feel a bit of jealousy, then we feel tired, then we feel boredom. Now, all these emotions, they come and go, they come and go. So why are we so attached to it? And what wisdom has to discover, to investigate, is simply what reality presents. What we normally do is that we're deliberately distorting reality. For example, imagining that it's permanent. I mean, theoretically, we will admit that one day we have to die, that the body is impermanent, but usually we live our life as if it's forever. We don't really consider that we die or that the body ages and becomes sick. Now, we are deluding ourselves. When people fall in love, all the love songs and poets, it's always, our love will last forever. Well, what is forever? 100 years? And that would be a huge exception. They would have to become really old and meet at a young age to last 100 years in their love. But often it may last only a year or a day or something. And it's the same with every single emotion. We get angry, upset. One example I always like to give, today is 23rd. It's the 23rd of November 2025. My guess is that at some stage on this day you had some irritation or some strong emotion, maybe something you didn't like. May have been even something major. But if I ask you on the 23rd of November 2024, what were you so upset about on that day? Can't even remember, ne? What were you so excited about on that day? What were you so anxious about on that day? Just a year later, we can't even remember it. So this is a good reflection. If we get carried away by an emotion, if we get so upset, so anxious, so worked up, so excited, just imagine a year later, 23rd November 2026, you will not be able to even remember what worked you up so much. However, because of this distortion, permanence distortion, every emotion comes always with this pretense of this is forever. When we are really down, we feel, oh no, I'll be miserable forever. Have you noticed that? Or when you're really happy, you think, oh, finally I know how to be happy. Now I'm going to be happy. But it changes. It's the same with perceptions, the same with views, even our views. Sometimes the same with things we like. I remember sometime as a kid I really hated tomatoes. Now I think tomatoes are quite nice. And everything changes. So what's the point on holding on? What's the point on getting so worked up with it? So the task of wisdom is recognizing that all these things, internal as external, particularly internal, is all impermanent, not lasting. And the purpose of seeing that clearly is that the heart can let go. And if the heart lets go, then we can experience what is beyond impermanence. If there was nothing else, it would be quite cool to ask people to contemplate that they die and that everything is impermanent. But what the Buddha discovered is that there is a state and realization and experience which is beyond the whole world of impermanent conditioned phenomena. It's known as Nibbana or the deathless or the unconditioned element. And the way of realizing that, experiencing that, is investigating all conditioned phenomena, everything we ever experience in our life normally, in this world, it's all conditioned phenomena, things that arise and pass away due to causes. Now, to investigate that and to see it as impermanent, to understand that this impermanent stuff can never give us lasting satisfaction, to see it as ultimately disappointing, to see it as not me, not mine, as not worth holding on to. And when that insight becomes mature and deep, then the heart will drop it all. And the moment the heart drops engagement, attachment, clinging to all conditioned phenomena, it can experience what is the unconditioned. And when the heart deeply experiences that, it attains what is called enlightenment, freedom, nibbana. And then the heart is freed from death and old age and sickness, from repeated rebirth. So maybe in a sense the more fun part can be the samatha, particularly if it goes well, you feel very happy, very relaxed. But we should never neglect the work of insight, of contemplating. Simply looking at reality is not imagining something. What the Buddha pointed out as impermanent and disappointing, that is a natural characteristic, is a nature of everything we encounter. So also externally. In the morning we had this heavy rain, afternoon the sun was shining again. Plants, a tree will grow from a seed, become old, will die. The candle burns until the wax is exhausted and goes off, goes out. Material things, they will wear down, they produce, they build, and then they wear down. And that is the same with all conditioned phenomena. I'm talking a lot. Do you have any questions? How did it go?
No, not really.
Did you have much pain or anything when sitting?
Yeah. I'm not used to it.
But I noticed during the meditation you sat in the chair, ne? I think that was easier and I think it was a good decision. Else you probably wouldn't have lasted the full hour. So don't be shy sitting in a chair. It's mostly a mental exercise, it's not a physical gymnastics. The other thing, when we say meditation, most people think of cross-legged or maybe even walking. But what the Buddha calls meditation would be bhavana, development, cultivation, and it's a whole eightfold path. You were here at noon, we talked about that. So what you do when you're sitting still and now you're trying to unify your mind, develop samatha, concentration on a meditation object, is directly related to how you live your life. And keeping precepts, not killing, not stealing, no sensual misconduct, no lying, not taking alcohol or intoxicants, has a huge impact how the mind develops in meditation. For example, if we break the 5 precepts, say in extreme case, someone murders another human, and then they sit down and try to watch the breath, it will usually not go well because they will have regret and remorse and worries and anxiety. Similar, if someone takes lots of alcohol and drugs and they try to make the mind very calm and refined, it will not work. Their mind is not too disturbed. So our conduct in daily life is directly related to our progress in meditation practice. And if you truly want to develop samādhi and insight and wisdom, we have to make the practice of cultivation, of development, of bhavana, a part of our daily life, and how we interact with other beings. It's interesting, once you meditate regularly, you will notice if you have a big argument and later you try to meditate, it tends not to go very well because you're still thinking about that, and I should have said this or I shouldn't have said that, this was not good, and you're still angry. And so the conduct in daily life is an important part of our development. For the more formal, refined part of the meditation, what is very helpful if you do it every day. So it's like learning an instrument or studying a difficult subject or learning a skill, a trade. If one does half an hour once a week, you don't really progress. Or going to the gym half an hour every 2 weeks, will you look like Arnie Schwarzenegger? Usually not. One has to work out in the gym regularly. So same with meditation. Usually you can make decent progress if you say do half an hour a day. It is very helpful to find a good time and then try to have it at the same time every day. If you're in lay life, a good one is usually early morning. Sometimes people say, I have no time to do meditation. There's a very easy trick. You can just get up an hour earlier, and then you have an hour more time. It's actually easy to get up an hour earlier. The trick is to go to bed 1.5 hours earlier. If you go to bed 1.5 hours earlier, you can sleep half an hour longer, and still have a full hour in the morning where you can do meditation or whatever you like. Isn't it fantastic? No, but seriously, it's usually a good quiet time, and lay life tends to be busy. And after sleeping, the mind already has digested some of the stuff by sleeping and dreaming, and is ideally fresh in the morning, is not loud, undisturbed, and you put in a good start to the day. However, I acknowledge that there are people like myself who are not exactly early birds. I'm more like a night owl, and some people are just not very bright in the morning. And in that case, and even in lay life, you can set a time aside in the evening. Don't make it too late that you're not too tired. And you may need a break after working, if you rush back home from work, to immediately try to develop meditation, and maybe too much of a change. The other thing which can be helpful is having a transition period. Because in our modern life, we often go full steam. It's a bit like on a German Autobahn. Have you ever been to Germany? Have you heard of the famous Autobahn? The German motorways, they have no speed limit. So if your car does 350, I think the current speed record on German Autobahn is over 400. There are some cars who are roadworthy certification, and they went there. You can see it on YouTube. They pick a very quiet time, and they have to pick a super straight stretch and minimum traffic, and they go with over 400, I think the fastest. This is a little bit what our life is like, 200, 250, rushing. And if you're going the 250 kilometers an hour, and then you try to stand still immediately, it's a bit much. You slam on the brake, and you may end up skidding and turning and overturning. So similar, if you're rushing through life, and now you want to watch the breath, you may need a transition period where you calm down. And one good one is a little Buddha puja, like we do here, some chanting. That's a classic one, what Buddhists do, offering some light, some incense. When you do that regularly at the same time, the moment you put the light on, you smell the incense, you see the Buddha statue, you do a bit of chanting, your mind automatically calms down. A good technique is the same place, the same time every day. Let's say 7 p.m. after you're back home, you have relaxed a bit. Or maybe 6 in the morning before you leave, after you're really awake. And then you have ideally a shrine room. The best is if you can have one room in your house, in your home, exclusively for meditation and as a shrine room. That obviously cannot always be achieved, depending on how big your home is. But otherwise, try to have a quiet and peaceful space in the quiet and peaceful room of your home, and set that aside, that area, that corner or something. And then the moment you go into that place, at that time, you will notice you have conditioned your mind, you already become calm quite naturally. And then even more so once you do the chanting and the little puja. Another thing you may want to do beforehand, which can be useful, is something like yoga or Tai Chi. Some people may even do a little bit of gardening work, if they like that, or a little bit of stretching, because the modern life is so different from meditation. I think the transition can be really helpful. And quite a few monks even do yoga or Tai Chi. And that's easier to focus on, and then you calm down gradually. So same time, same place, preparing a little shrine, and then you establish this energy in your home, in that spot. Quite a few people, when they come here to Dhammagiri, they tell me, such a beautiful, calm, tranquil energy in the monastery here. And I hope that is the case, and it is possible that certain locations can be charged with a certain energy. This is why it's more fun working out in the gym than in a library. This is more like reading in a library. It's just the atmosphere, the energy, that's what everyone is doing there. And if you have that spot in your home and you're very upset or you feel depressed, even if you just go there and sit there, you may already feel a bit relieved and lighter, because that energy can build up and can somehow be stored. I don't know how it works, but it's possible. Do you have a shrine at home? Or?
Yeah,
Little corner, eh? Good, good. It's also helpful to have, at the minimum, try to bow and do the itipiso at least once every day, as the absolute minimum. The better, a little puja, chanting, a bit meditation. But don't make it too big, because if you plan on doing an hour puja and then 3 hours meditation, that may be such a challenge that you end up not even starting. So sometimes a good technique is you say, okay, I just do quick itipiso, namo tassa itipiso, and then 10 minutes meditation. This is so easy and it's not a big challenge. But once you do that, and then after 10 minutes meditation, you may feel actually quite happy, relaxed. You may just as well sit longer. Now I recommend using positive reinforcement, training yourself to enjoy meditation. And I try to do that also in the guided meditation. If you try to do it because I'm a Buddhist, I should be meditating, or it's just some idea and I should be doing that, but you're not enjoying it, it becomes more like a duty, like cleaning the toilet or something I have to do, although I dislike it. I'm not so sure whether you will continue. Whereas if it's really enjoyable and you do just even 10 minutes, why would you not do it longer? So I strongly recommend really trying to develop a lot of joy while you meditate, a lot of contentment, ease.